Well, hi everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings, Roofing Contractor and Building Enclosure. Art Eisner, the editor of Roofing Contractor, and I are honored to visit today with Trent Cotney, CEO of Cotney Construction Law. Trent is one of the leading legal experts in the roofing industry, but also represents contractors in all construction trades. Trent is an incredible advocate for the industry and very gracious with his time. So thank you very much, Trent, for being with us today. And if you're not following Trent on social media, check him out because he always has great nuggets of insight to offer. Trent, for the second straight week, let's begin by tackling some major national legal news about immigrant workers. Can you help explain the president's executive order signed yesterday on temporary workers' visas?
Sure. Well, first off, Jill, Art, my friends, it's good to see you. I want to tell everybody out there that this shouldn't be a surprise, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about the Supreme Court decision on DACA, but when that came out, the Trump administration was out for blood. So the fact that you're starting to see these executive orders come through, this is just the beginning. So let me tell you what this executive order said, because it caught a lot of people off guard initially. And what the Trump administration did is they put a suspension on a lot of different types of visas through the end of the year, okay? And those suspensions include sort of the high-level, highly skilled workers, which are commonly referred to as H-1Bs. They also affected J trainee visas and L intercompany transfer visas. So if you have company places in both Canada and United States, could affect that, probably not because there's some exceptions. But if you have other places outside the United States, it might. But the biggest thing is it affected H-2B visas. And H-2B visas are guest worker visas for the type of labor that a lot of contractors use. Okay, we've worked with contractors in the past to do it. It's a lengthy bureaucratic process like everything with immigration. But it did put a temporary ban on that through the end of the year. So one of the things we get asked a lot, and I've had at least 2 or 3 phone calls since this executive order came out, was what does this mean for us? Okay, if I wanted to continue to try to get H-2B workers over here, how do I do that? Okay, and here's what I tell everybody. Okay, the next time, if you haven't already applied for H-2B, okay, if you've applied, you're good. You're in the sort of grace period. If you haven't applied, the next time to apply is October. Okay, there's nothing in that executive order which prevents you from submitting your request, right? By the time that the analysis is due, the ban more than likely would have ended, okay? Meaning that you're not gonna know until 2021. So I would, if I'm giving advice to contractors out there, what I would say is proceed with whatever immigration that you're going to do. There's no harm, no foul with submitting those applications. This suspension can always be continued. And here's what, don't get me on my soapbox, but here's one of the things that I think the Trump administration missed the mark on, because they said the justification was the fact that the unemployment rates were so high, and that this was going to put another 525,000 people to work. That's not correct in construction, okay? In construction, our biggest threat, no matter what trade you're in, is lack of skilled labor, right? Jill and Art, we talk about it all the time. So here's the issue is if there aren't jobs to replace those skilled labor jobs here in the United States, if we can't use legal immigration to get workers over here, then it's going to continue to be a problem. So what does this mean? You're going to see more of this, okay? Jill, you and I and Art are going to be talking more about what the next executive orders look like, because there's going to be more coming. But the thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we're educating our legislators as to the importance of legal immigration. And we've got to create a mechanism to get people in here legally and have them become part of the system rather than outside the system.
Thanks, Trent, and hello, everyone. I appreciate you joining us. To follow up on that real quick, is there anything to say to contractors that may have to put some of their employees at ease reading some of this news and kind of not wondering what may happen with their status? What do you tell contractors there?
So the good news is with this executive order that came out, it affects people that are outside the United States. So if you're here in the United States, you're okay. Okay, you're okay for now. And what's interesting is going back to the Supreme Court's DACA decision is there's always that checks and balances. Even though sometimes it doesn't seem like that when you watch the news, there's checks and balances. And what the Supreme Court did is they looked at the decision to rescind the DACA program. And here's the key thing. They didn't tell the Trump administration that you can't do it. They just said that the way that you went about doing it wasn't procedurally correct. It's still very controversial because Justice Roberts, who's normally a conservative vote, sided with the majority. And I would expect Trump is going to go back and try to do something. But if I had to give advice to contractors, what I would tell them is that this is an unfriendly immigration environment. Okay, it is unfriendly. So you need to make sure that you are being honest with the people that work for you, that you are staying up to date because things can change, as we saw, overnight. So that's what concerns me, is just being able to keep up with all the changes, because in COVID, they seem like they're happening almost every 12 hours now. So,
Trent, did the Supreme Court's DACA decision, did that cover, or they really didn't delve into the legality of the DACA executive order from the Obama administration, which is really kind of what was prompting this suit in the first place, right?
Right. So what's interesting, a lot of people, we use terms like DACA and nobody really knows what it is. So let me tell you what DACA is and just give you sort of the simple terms. That's, I need to kind of explain a little bit. So DACA, it is a program that began with the Obama administration. And what it does is it allows certain undocumented children who came to the U.S. as children for a 2-year forbearance from removal proceedings. Okay. So with this DACA designation, these children could attend school and legally work in the U.S. without having to fear being deported. So there's some general requirements for DACA, okay? And there's 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm just going to give you a handful of them. One is you can't be convicted with any felony or significant misdemeanor, okay? And that's one that kicks a lot of people out of the program. You have to be under the age of 31 as of June 15th, 2012. You had to have come to the United States before you reached your 16th birthday. And you have to have graduated high school or have a GED equivalent. Okay? You don't have to currently be in school, but you have to have that. Okay. And there's several other requirements, but generally, if you meet these requirements, you can apply for DACA. What this decision means is if you have workers in your company that are interested in applying, is you can still move forward with it. Okay. And that's what the Supreme Court said. So for now, that suspension of the program, the getting rid of the program by the Trump administration was ruled unlawful. So it is still in effect.
Got it. Okay. And like you said, the controversy over that is probably far from over. We'll see how that evolves. Let's switch gears back to COVID-19. Certainly that's having a big effect on construction again now, as we're seeing spikes in certain states. Any updates on what's happening in some of the bigger states, and what are you hearing from contractors now?
Yeah, so not unanticipated. There are a lot of different states that are spiking. I happen to be in one. Florida is spiking. The city of Tampa went under a mandatory mask rule. We're in Hillsborough County, which is right outside Tampa lines. We go to mandatory masks tomorrow, which is going to be fun. And Texas, we were talking about Texas before we started here. They've had some mandatory mask rules. There's other states that have enforced it. There are some states that are looking at reclosing down. Okay, so the advice that I want to give contractors on this is kind of twofold. Is one, be prepared. Okay, you've been through this before. Don't let it catch you again off guard. Okay, recognize that if you are in certain states that have had very stringent requirements on closure, you can expect that there might be a return to that. So, Jill, I'm looking at Michigan, right? So, that's one of the things you need to watch out for is if, based on the government's leaning, you may have a more strict return to what it was before. One of the things that contractors should also be aware of is that there's a difference between the mandatory mask rule and PPE. Okay, mandatory masks, the cloth masks, those aren't PPE. Okay, give people some reasonable, assurance that they're not going to get COVID, but it's not 100% protection, right? So there's a difference between wearing a mandatory mask if you're in an office environment and wearing a respirator or personal protective equipment if you're on a job site. And keep in mind that OSHA has come out with certain guidelines. They are not rules. We've talked about this in the past, but you need to follow those guidelines. Maintain social distancing. If you're out in public, recognize that you are being watched, okay? In the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of contractors call me because their customers, primarily homeowners, were concerned about their workers not having masks on. Okay, and they'll post stuff on various social media websites talking about it. That spreads around. So you need to be aware, not only from a safety perspective, because if there is a COVID outbreak, you're going to have OSHA taking a look at you. But you need to be aware from both just sort of a reputation management standpoint and also from a business perspective. If you're not wearing masks out in public and people can see you and you aren't maintaining social distancing, then you're opening yourself up to potential liability.
As contractors, if they need to prepare for another possible lockdown, in terms of what's your advice in terms of materials and setting stuff like that up? Should they start procuring some of that in advance, or are you confident that even if there are more lockdowns, roofing will remain an essential business?
I think roofing and construction in general will remain essential. I don't see, even if we go back to the way it was in March, April, I don't see a lot of changes in what was essential, what was not essential. Okay, I see the bars and restaurants and that kind of stuff closing down. I can tell you here in Florida, it's the bars. You're seeing a big spike in the young population. My bar going days are long over. So it's not my age bracket that's getting hit with it. It's the younger crowd. So I think that they're going to restrict that if they restrict anything, and there'll be additional requirements like these mandatory mask rules and other things. As far as the supply chain, it's been fairly steady. I haven't initially. I had some complaints about sourcing certain materials from China. I think that inventory is pretty decent. I would be concerned if we start getting big name storms. That's when I'm going to be concerned, because it's not just the areas that are hit. What ends up happening is you end up having to grab supplies from other areas to meet that demand, and that creates like a domino effect. So if we do get hit with a major storm, which I think this year is very likely, whether it's in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, that might have an impact in other regions.
Over the past week, we published our first story about a roofing company bankruptcy that was directly related to the COVID-19 crisis. This is another thing you warned would be coming, and here it is. Can you talk about, I guess, that situation, and really, is this just the beginning?
I think so. I think one of the things that we preach, from a business consulting side of things, is making sure that you are monitoring your key performance indicators. It doesn't matter whether times are good or bad. A mistake that a lot of contractors make is they focus on gross revenue rather than net profit, net income. And it doesn't matter how much work you're doing if you don't have anything at the end of the day, to show for it. So I think some contractors may be in a position where they've operated like that, and if things start turning down at all, they're already in a negative position. Okay, there are other contractors that are very conservative, that have war chest already built up, that are prepared for times like this, that are going to weather the storm a lot better. So I think what you are definitely going to see more bankruptcies. I can tell you, we have already been dealing with a lot of developers, a lot of owners, a lot of general contractors that have filed bankruptcy trying to pursue claims on behalf of trades in bankruptcy. So it's going to happen. Understanding your rights and your responsibilities in bankruptcy is important, the ability to file proof of claim, things of that nature. But this is, I think, a sign of times to come. If everybody is happy as can be when the money's flowing, But when that money stops, that's when the cracks show, right? And if you haven't engaged in good business practices, if you haven't shored up your foundation, then a lot of times that may cause certain issues. And look, there are certain, that's not to say, not to be stereotypical, that's not the way with everybody, but there are certain industries that have been hit harder than others. New construction's been hit really hard, right? So, that could easily be a cause that could drive your business overnight. So, yeah, it's interesting times. I would expect that you're going to hear more big names, like this file for bankruptcy. And, I guess we'll have to stay tuned and see what happens.
Okay. Switching gears a little bit, IBEC just completed their first virtual event for the roofing industry, and we're on the cusp of the Western Roofing Expo. We recently had the organizers for the Western States Roofing Contractors Association on to kind of preview the event. You and your firm are presenting more than a few times. Tell us, what are you looking forward to as a presenter?
So I always enjoy speaking, for Western States. It's a good bunch of people out there, really welcoming. That was, one of my favorite things about getting involved with Western States was they just welcomed me with open arms years ago. And I think, we're blessed that we're talking about a lot of different topics, a lot of stuff that I think people are going to be interested in. We're talking about, the key roofing contract provisions you need in your contract, OSHA defense. We have one on business succession planning, employment issues. We hit all the major topics. So I think all in all, our firm is speaking 5 different times. I look forward to getting good questions. I want to interact. I don't want to just be sitting there and, spouting off chapter and verse. I'd rather engage with the contractor like we're doing now and be able to, answer questions. And I want anybody that's attending that seminar, I don't expect them to remember everything I say, but when they get back to their office and they're shuffling through their papers, I want them to say, hey, I remember Trent said this, okay? And if I can save one contractor even $100, I've done my job, right? That's the whole point of these seminars is you pick up stuff and you might not be arguing in front of the Supreme Court, but you may remember what an indemnification provision is, or you may remember how to deal with OSHA. And if that saves you money, that's the value in going to these seminars, right? So that's what excites me because my business is based off being proactive rather than reactive. I don't want contractors to get sued. I don't want them to be investigated by OSHA. I want them to be compliant and enjoy success. These seminars, even though they're about legal topics, are designed for that purpose.
Do you think that the virtual aspect of it will allow for more of those questions or more of that kind of connectivity than, say, a large room with a couple hundred people?
Yeah, I think it's a different medium, and I think as people are getting used to communicating this way, they're also used to asking questions. We've had a lot of webinars in the past where, we'd first start off and we get a handful of questions. Now, we'll do webinars and we get a ton of them. So I think also the way that the format is, it allows for questions even after the fact. So, we may trail off and get one or 2 weeks later, and that's great. We love answering questions. I got no problem talking to people. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be successful, and we're fired up. We got a lot to do during those weeks, but it should be fun.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to you and your team certainly doing their thing with Western States, and appreciate your time as always. Jill, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Thank you, Art. Yeah, thank you so much, Trent. It's always great to hear your insight and what's going on. And again, everybody who's going to be checking out Western States Virtual Trade Show, please tune in to Trent. We're going to be promoting that on our website and our e-newsletters. Trent, if anybody has any questions before then, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. Just go to my website, cottonycl.com, or feel free to email me at tcottony@cottonycl.com.
Fabulous. Well, again, Trent, thank you so much for your time today. And we want to thank everyone who's watching for joining us today. If you do need to reach us, go to roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com and click on this Contact Us page. And while you're there, make sure you sign up to subscribe for free to our e-newsletters and our digital editions. And in the meantime, everyone stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, Trent.
Thank you.